And how did you go? Did you get it out, or did you cheat and have a look at my solution? Well, I hope you didn't cheat, and I hope you were startled by how much simpler it made your code. Let's go and have a look at it. Okay, here we are back in our CD project. There is only one file, I believe, that changed in this entire chapter, and that is main.c. Let's have a look at main.c. Okay, so let's have a look. First thing we need to look at, I guess, is, well, let's do the second exercise first, the array of menu options. Let's have a look at that. It's going to be, let's have a look at it. There it is. I found it. Now I've done a little bit of cleverness here, a bit of C cleverness. I've declared a type. I've declared the array, and I've declared the type of the array as part of the same declaration. But that's just magic, and it doesn't matter if you didn't do that. It just means that you will have had a semicolon here, and you would have had the words struct something or other there. But I'm not going to do that. Now, here are the 10 lines that I was talking about. These are 10 structures. So we've got the words that are going to be printed out when the user sees the menu, and then we've got the function that's going to be called when the user selects the option. File new, file open, file save, and so forth. Those have already been written. They're all written already. I just have to take advantage of them. So let's go now and have a look at the display menu function that changed. We put out the little header. This is all the header details. This is how many records are in the system. And then we display the menu. And this is all there is to it. Just 2 lines of code. We say, remember that little number of elements macro that I wrote before? I can use that here to ask me how many menu options there actually are in the array. That's very handy to be able to do that. So for however many menu options there are, simply print out that line. And that will simply print out the menu option number, in other words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on, and then the menu option string. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward there. There's nothing hard about that. Then they'll enter a valid choice. So I'm going to do a little bit of looping until they enter a valid choice. Please enter your choice. If they got it wrong, then tell them it was invalid and so on. We've seen all that stuff before. That's pretty straightforward. Finally, and here's the beautiful piece of code. This is the elegance of it all. No more great big massive switch statement. Simply 1 line of code. This is the function. It's called func because the field name is called func. There's the func right there. That's called func. And the little void inside the brackets, just in case you're wondering about that, void inside brackets like that, it doesn't mean it takes a variable of type void, because there is no such thing as a variable of type void. There's a void pointer, but there's not a void. Void inside the brackets means it takes no parameters. And all of these functions, these ones here, edit, add, and file save, and file new, they take no parameters, and they're all void functions as well. Anyway, so it's just 1 line of code. Here it is. Whatever choice they entered, use that as an array index, and simply call the function that that was in the array. So in other words, one of these functions up here will get called. Either quit, that one there, or view sort. Well, that's the new one. We'll have a look at that in a moment. That's the compare function for that. View display all. That's menu option 8. View display 1. They're all the same. They're all void functions, and they all take no parameters. So that's why the void was in there, because they take no parameters. It's beautiful, isn't it? Just 1 line of code prints out, does all that switch statement for us. 1 line of code, or rather 2 lines of code, print out the menu for us, and then 1 line of code executes the function that they selected. It's a great thing. So now, whenever you need to delete a menu option, you can say, right, delete that, gone. You don't need to do anything else. Everything else will just work. I can put it back in again. I can move things around. I can reorganize the list. I can add a new menu option, like this one, sort the records, which was the view sort. I can add a new one, and it will just work beautifully. I won't have to touch a single other line of code. Okay, so that's the more difficult of the 2 exercises. The first one now should be almost trivial. We just simply have to write a sort option. And there's qsort. there's the CDs that we pass it in. Now remember that the CDs are now an array of pointers. An array of pointers. And our comparison function will receive the address of two of these pointers to compare. In other words, it's going to be getting the address of a pointer. In other words, it's going to be getting a pointer to a pointer. Did you have trouble with that? How many times did you crash your program before you figured that out? So I've just got here something called comparefunc. Let's have a look at comparefunc. Comparefunc, it takes two void parameters. There they are, and they're consts as well. I know that's a bit ugly, but I'll put a little bit of a comment up here to describe why that is. And I declare two temp pointers. Now that's an even uglier piece of code. If I got rid of the word const there, then you'd see that they're just pointers to pointers. Now that's the important thing. That's probably the hardest line of code that you'll have had to do in this entire exercise. We get past a void pointer, but we know that that void pointer is really the address of a pointer to a CD. So we can do this little assignment statement here to make things simpler for us. Now, because of this horrible const thing here, which is a requirement of the library, and I can't avoid it, I just have to put the word const in here as well. But don't worry too much about that. Just pretend it's not even there. Then I compare the artists, and if the artists are different, then I can return how different they are. Just return whatever string compare returned to me. And if they're the same, then I compare the titles. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The compare function, or the compare algorithm, the actual comparing that I'm doing, which is this bit of code here, is quite simple. It's not tricky at all. The trickiest part is interpreting the two parameters correctly. We get past void pointers, but they're actually not pointers to voids, they're pointers to CD pointers. So they're pointers to pointers. Now if you got that first go, I'll be very impressed, because that was probably the hardest part of all of this. This was a very difficult pair of exercises. However, they are the last exercises in the entire course. So the program that you have just written is now in its final form. At least it's in its final form as far as I want it. We've probably written about 1,000 lines of code saved in these various files here. So you can give yourselves a pat on the back for writing such a complex and arguably even useful program. Open up the next module and I'll show you just a little added extra, a little appendix if you like.